Washington turns up the heat on Baghdad, a second aircraft carrier dispatched to the Gulf. Parents accept a £2 million settlement for children injured in a car fire. A huge cannabis seizure in Dublin. 6 people are in custody this evening. The Attorney General decides against pursuing Charles Haughey for further tribunal costs. Good evening and welcome. 2 children who were severely burned when their parents' Fiat Mirafiori car burst into flames outside the family home are to receive almost £2 million in a settlement approved by the High Court. The action was taken against 4 defendants, including Fiat Ireland, on behalf of Liam and James Murphy, through their mother, Margaret Murphy.
Lima and James Murphy were toddlers at the time of the accident. They had just returned from a picnic with their mother, Margaret Murphy. She got out of their Fiat Mirafiori and minutes later it burst into flames. Today the High Court approved a settlement of over £2 million for the children. £876,000 for James Murphy, who's now 13, and more than £1 million for his younger sister, Lima. The court heard that she has the greater disability, with severe burns to her head, face and upper body.
Well, we're very happy. After a long time, it's finally come to an end, and we're just happy about it, that's all. So we want to get on now with our lives, and what's happened has happened, so we want to go forward now. We have 2 lovely kids, so we're proud of them. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The Murphys began the proceedings in 1990 against 4 companies: Fiat in Ireland and Italy, Protectacar Contract Service and J. Donoghue Limited. Mr. Justice Johnson said the settlement had exceeded the top possible damages which could be awarded in such a case, and that he was delighted. He said the injuries were of a very, very severe, permanent and disabling nature, and he praised Mr. and Mrs. Murphy for enabling their children to recover so well. He said the 2 children were remarkable achievers and were doing well at school. He described Lima Murphy, who's now 11, as a very determined girl. The case has been adjourned for 3 weeks to allow the money to be deposited with the courts.
Iraq has introduced petrol rationing after President Clinton's announcement that he's sending a second aircraft carrier to the Persian Gulf. Mr. Clinton has promised to maintain sanctions on Iraq as long as Saddam Hussein remains in power. He acted in response to the expulsion from Iraq of American weapons inspectors working for the United Nations. Almost the entire inspection team have been withdrawn in protest. President Clinton said the issue was how to stop Saddam Hussein reconstructing his weapons of mass destruction. Our Washington correspondent Mark Little has this report.
After a grueling road journey out of Iraq, the American inspectors arrived in Amman this morning, just as the international community was deciding its next move against Saddam Hussein. The UN has already suspended its arms inspection in Iraq, leaving just a skeleton staff in Baghdad. But early today, the UN Security Council decided to raise the stakes, condemning the expulsion of American arms inspectors and warning of serious consequences if the decision is not reversed.
My reaction, I expected the Council to take a firm stand, and they did.
Back in Washington, President Clinton gave enthusiastic backing to the latest Security Council decision.
We have to steel ourselves and be determined that the will of the international community, expressed in the United Nations Security Council resolutions, will have to prevail. This is simply, it's too dangerous an issue that would set a too powerful a precedent about the impotence of the United Nations if we didn't proceed on this.
The United States is stressing the need for diplomatic efforts to resolve the dispute with Saddam. It knows it can't afford to let this confrontation become a battle between the U.S. and Iraq.
It is our hope that as a result of yet another very firm statement from the United Nations Security Council, that he will get the message that it is Saddam Hussein against the world.
While diplomacy is the order of the day, the U.S. is preparing for the worst. Today, President Clinton decided to move a second aircraft carrier to the Gulf to back up the formidable firepower America already has in the region. Meanwhile, the British aircraft carrier Invincible is on its way to join U.S. forces. Despite this build-up, the White House says military action is still a last resort. But this weekend, the possibility of military confrontation increases. The U.S. will resume surveillance flights over Iraq as early as Sunday. Saddam has pledged to shoot down any spy planes over his territory, an action that would bring a swift response from the Americans.
Gardaí have broken up a